Hello and welcome. This is a guide for everything you need to know in Last Epoch 1.0. This game goes full access tomorrow, February 21st of 2024, and we're going to be going over the patch notes of everything being added and get ready for 1.0. So right off the bat, they're adding a new mastery for the Rogue, Falconeer. Added the third Rogue class mastery, Falconeer, so they added another subclass. The Falconeer is a master tactician who utilizes traps and their fearsome falcon companion to prey on their enemies. New mastery skill summons a falcon that fights with you. The falcon cannot be targeted or take damage. Okay. Active falcon strikes. The falcon rapidly hits many enemies in the target area. Okay. Probably like a AoE area, you know. The falcon will attack. Explosive trap, 5-point skill available to all rogue masteries. Throws a trap that explodes when triggered, dealing throwing fire damage. Traps take 0.4 seconds to arm and explode when enemies walk over them or after 30 seconds. You can have a maximum of 6 active traps at a time. Okay, be like a minefield almost. That's pretty cool. There it is right there. Place a trap on the ground that, when triggered, devastates the area with explosive fire. The longer your trap is deployed, the more powerful the explosion. Okay. Net leaps backwards and throws a net which snares enemies and deals physical damage. Netted bosses and rare enemies have a 35% less movement speed, and other enemies are immobilized. That seems like it'll be really good. Aerial assault. You leap towards the target, and your falcon dives to catch you and momentarily carry you further before it flies up and unleashes a wing burst at the target location. Finally, we have Dive Bomb. Your falcon ascends high into the sky, then dive bombs the target location at high speed, dealing a high amount of physical damage to the enemies in the area. So we have, this is a mastery skill and a passive. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 abilities being added. I'm going to have to check that out. Looks pretty cool. Alright, secondly, we have the Acolyte Mastery, Warlock. Added a third Acolyte Mastery, Warlock. The Warlock is a master of forbidden magic who utilizes curses as well as necrotic and fire magic to ruin their enemies. Yes. This sounds awesome. Alright, Mastery Skill. Opens an infernal fissure in the ground, dealing fire damage over time to enemies on top of it, as well as releasing spirits from the fissure that seek nearby enemies. These spirits inflict a curse that slows and deals necrotic damage over time. Max one active fissure. Alright, so we'll only be able to deploy one. Chaos Bolts. A barrage of chaotic projectiles which land in an area around the target. The explosions deal necrotic and fire damage in a small area. Channel to release a continuous jet of horrid flames in front of you, dealing fire and necrotic damage over time. You have no mana regen while channeling. Okay, so this depletes mana. We can't regain either. Soul Feast has been moved from the Lich passive tree to the Warlock passive tree. Feast on the souls of cursed enemies, dealing necrotic damage to them and drawing fragments of their souls back to you. The soul fragments each grant 3 ward when they reach you. Feast on up to 13 enemies, prioritizing those closest to you. Profane Veil. Channel to conceal yourself within a profane veil that deals necrotic damage over time to enemies around you. While concealed, you dodge every hit, but you can still take damage from damage over time effects such as ailments, and you move more slowly. Lasts for up to 2 seconds, also ends when you release the key. Cooldown does not recover during use. Item factions. So we're getting 2 new factions, Circle of Fortune and the Merchants Guild. It's basically talking about them here. Okay, so we're getting 2 new factions, Circle of Fortune and the Merchants Guild. Your first opportunity to join either the Merchants Guild or Circle of Fortune comes with your arrival to the upper district of the great mercantile city, Majelka. Each faction will allow players to make a meaningful and rewarding choice in how they want to empower their loot hunt in its area. You will rise through the ranks of your selected faction and gain reputation by defeating enemies and completing quests while aligned with that faction. This means that just by going about your adventure, you will passively build reputation with your current faction. You can join or leave factions at any time, and your reputation with a faction is never lost or spent and is also shared across your account in that game mode. This means that if you rank up one character to Circle of Fortune rank 7 on Hardcore Cycle, any of your Hardcore Cycle characters upon joining Circle of Fortune will both share and contribute to that same rank progression. Characters in different game modes, such as Solo Challenge, Normal Cycle, do have their reputations separated in the same way that the player item stash is. Once one of your characters within a given game mode has joined an item faction, subsequent characters in that game mode are able to join a faction at Keeper Camp in Chapter 1. Items you gain throughout the bonuses of your chosen faction will not be tradable, but can be gifted. Joining a faction will not prevent you from playing with any other player, and you will still be able to gift items to other players regardless of their selected faction. Overall, we have reduced the base item drop, especially in endgame, because the item factions will significantly boost your ability to not only find more items overall, but also to find higher quality items. Within the first few ranks of COF, this is balanced out even without prophecies. Below, you will find a high-level overview of each faction, but you can still find all the details in the post here. We can't wait to see what faction you align with and watch you climb to the top of the ranks. Okay, we have Circle of Fortune. Joining the Circle of Fortune will grant you boosts to items you find yourself throughout prophecies and passive bonuses. These bonuses will not only improve the rarity of the items you find, but will also increase the quantity and the quality of your loot. Remember, items you acquire with these bonuses will be tagged as a Circle of Fortune faction item, which will not be tradable. Additionally, items found in level 60 plus zones by characters who have left the Circle of Fortune and are not aligned with any factions will not be tradable. Players who want to find tradable items after leaving Circle of Fortune need to align with the Merchants Guild. By choosing to align with the Circle of Fortune, you will be directed to visit the observatory located in northern Majelka in the Divine Era. The observatory serves as the Circle of Fortune's primary hub. Okay. So that's one of the factions. And the main hub will be in northern Majelka in the Divine Era. Okay. Prophecies are pseudo items which can be purchased in the observatory that cause certain item drops or increase the odds of higher tier affixes being generated on an item when you complete the requirements listed on the prophecy. The prophecy event will outline what particular event needs to occur in order for the prophecy to trigger. Some example events are the death of Chronomancer Julra, death of Arena Champion, death of X number of rare enemies, and death of X number of siege golems. Okay, so it's basically like a quest, and you have to fulfill the quest. In the observatory, you can acquire prophecies by spending favor through one of the 4 telescopes. Each telescope offers prophecies for specific items types, including armor, weapons, idols, and crafting materials and accessories. You will also be able to modify your telescopes using lenses to change the type or value of rewards from the prophecies, or to change the requirements of the prophecy events. Lenses offer a lot of power to customize the randomness of prophecies and focus them on the types of items you want, as well as the activities you want to do. There's also room for more types of lenses to add in the future, though these will be the 4 types available with 1.0. The Merchants Guild. Okay, this is the other faction. Joining the Merchants Guild gives you the ability to trade items with other players through the bazaar and directly player to player. The bazaar will be a new town you can find just north of Majelka in the Divine Era. Your rank with the Merchants Guild will determine what kind of trades you'll be entrusted with. Meaning with more reputation comes the opportunity to both obtain more powerful and sought after items. Ooh. I don't know which one we're going to run. The Circle of Fortune sounds pretty neat. And then the Merchant Guild sounds cool too. I think probably on our run, we're going to do the Circle of Fortune. Okay, continuing. Buying items. In the bazaar, you will find numerous stalls with an icon representing what type you can find at that stall. At the stall, you will be able to purchase the specific item type from players all across the world who are participating in the same game mode, such as Hardcore Cycle. With the Bazaar, we wanted to make sure players have all the power they need to find what they're looking for. So in the Bazaar UI, you'll find options here you won't find in the loot filter and the ability to refine your searches to find whatever you need. If you want to purchase an item directly from another player, you will both need to be in the Merchants Guild and in the same town. You will be able to initiate player-to-player trade by simply right-clicking on the player when you are nearby. Regardless of how you buy an item from another player, you'll first need to make sure you have what you need to purchase the item, including faction rank, favor cost, and the amount of gold the seller is asking for. You will not be able to buy or sell faction tagged items. Okay. So no, you can't sell or buy faction items from another faction. To sell items through the Merchants Guild, you'll want to start by visiting your personal stall. This can be accessed through any vendor in the Bazaar or by speaking to Kubra, a Merchants Guild NPC. In the My Stall UI, you will be able to easily list an item, and the Merchants Guild will automatically assign a favor cost to list the item based on the item quality. List the required rank and provide you with an input box to enter your asking price for the item. Trading directly with a player will work the same, but still requires you to be in the same town and both be in the Merchants Guild. Okay, so you both have to be in the Merchants Guild and you both have to be in the same location in order to trade an item. You will be able to sell any item regardless of rank in the Merchants Guild as long as it is not a faction tagged item or an item otherwise marked as cannot be traded. However, selling an item will still cost a fourth of the favor required to purchase the item. Okay, so that's factions. Features, new skills, Primalist, Gathering Storm. Add a new base Primalist class skill, Gathering Storm. The Ice Thorn skill has been removed and replaced by Gathering Storm. Unlocked at level 2 as a Primalist. Strike at your enemy with a mighty lightning-powered storm. When you use Gathering Storm and hit at least one enemy, you gain a storm stack. Every second you expend a storm stack to cause a storm bolt to strike a nearby enemy. This interval is reduced by 2% for every stack you currently have. Okay. Primalist, Tempest Strike. Revised base Primalist class skill, Tempest Strike. Unlocked at level 10 as a Primalist. A melee combo attack that cycles through a Cold Strike, a Physical Strike, and a Lightning Strike that trigger elemental Tempest spells of the same damage type if the strike hits at least one enemy. Cold Strike triggers a Frigid Tempest, which is a cold projectile that pierces through enemies. Physical Strike triggers a Wind Tempest, which is a small twister that lasts a short duration, dealing physical damage over time. Lightning Strike triggers a Thunder Tempest, which is an expanding storm of lightning bolts. Sentinel, Healing Hands. Added skill tree for Paladin Mastery skill, Healing Hands. Unlocked after spending 5 points in the Paladin passive tree. Heals all allies in target area for 100 health and applies a Lingering Warmth, which heals 80 health over the next 3 seconds. The Lingering Warmth cannot stack on the same target. Resonances. Normally, players can gift an item to another player only if they were present when the item was found. Resonances are special items that expand item gifting, allowing players to give specific items to players they have played with frequently. When the players weren't together when it was found, resonances are specific to an individual player. In order to be found, players must play together for extended periods of time. Okay. Alright, so it resonates with somebody that you're playing with. Okay, so say me and whoever are playing, and we play for, I don't know the time, but 8 hours, we will each be gifted a resonance, and I can therefore trade an item with him, and he can trade an item with me. If we found items that we weren't playing together. Progress towards a resonance drop only happens when defeating enemies that grant experience and is saved between sessions. This means that sometimes a resonance might drop very shortly after playing together again with the same player. Once found, the Resonance Tooltips displays the username it resonates with, and after being stored by pressing the Transfer Materials button in the inventory, it can be used to allow gifting of an otherwise ineligible item to that player. There are 2 types of resonances. Golden resonances is the more common one and allows the gifting of normal, magic, rare, set, unique items with no legendary potential, and idols. Obsidian Resonance, which is the much rarer, needs to be used when attempting to gift exalted uniques with legendary potential and legendary items. Okay, so the Obsidian one's rare. Resonances do not change any item use requirements such as faction rank requirements. Cycles. We recommend players create cycle characters. Cycles are last Epoch seasons, which will start with each major game update, such as 1.0, 1.1. With the start of each cycle, all players will have the option to create new characters in an environment where nobody has prior progression, making it a fresh start for everyone. Only cycle characters are able to compete in the current cycle's leaderboards. Once a cycle ends, leaderboard placements are locked in and stored, making it impossible to submit new placements for that cycle. Those placements will be viewable from the leaderboards page. All characters and items will transfer over to Legacy, where also all pre-1.0 characters and items are. Legacy characters cannot submit new placements to the leaderboards or trade or party with cycle characters. Okay. So basically, if we're using our characters before 1.0, we can't trade with any character that's on a 1.0 plus cycle. Okay, full offline mode. Added the ability to launch Last Epoch in a fully offline mode. This can be accessed through the Steam UI by the following instructions. Right click on your game library, select properties. Okay. Escape, now pause at the game. Full online mode, but okay, visual upgrades. Basically, they've just added shaders to make new scenes with the same models in game. See, this system allows us to bring much more variety into the game. For example, Monolith scene can look very different each time you'll enter it. Foggy, dark, night, day. Lighting system. In addition to ambient occlusion improvements, we are also adding a modern screen space soft shadow system. In scenes that previously had no shadows, the player's character is now the source of physical light. This increased the dramatic lighting in our scenes where objects around the player properly cast shadows while still keeping performance in check. Since this is a screen space solution, it has a fixed performance cost no matter how many objects or monsters are on screen. Okay, good. Hopefully this doesn't cause a lot of crashes. Overhauled shadows in many scenes to enhance their impact and depth. Light will follow the player as they progress through the scene and add directionality and dynamic feel to the shadows. This system has fixed performance costs, which means it won't scale with additional enemies or objects on screen. This is good, real good. That means if the whole screen is enemies, we're not going to crash just because this lighting system is being implemented. You can adjust these shadows by using the shadow quality settings. Very low shadow quality completely disables the system. Okay, so we can turn it on and off. Improve lighting and post-processing across the game so scenes will look less washed out and have higher contrast and a more dramatic look overall. Increase quality of volumetric settings and high and ultra settings should have increased resolution for volumetric lights. New ambient inclusion tech which will have an overall more refined and better appearance at higher settings. 2.5D cinematics. Added a new intro cinematic to the game that introduces the player to the Divine Era in Chapter 1. This replaces the old class-specific intros. 8 other cinematics added throughout the campaign chapters. Other. Updated all character classes with model improvements, better proportions, new rigs, and new animations. We've continued to improve the performance of our visuals by optimizing textures, draw calls, model cleanup, shaders, and lighting. Terrain shader improvements to make environments more lifelike and visually cleaner. Okay. Alright, system changes. They've rebalanced endgame. You will find more details in the section for each endgame system, but we wanted to give you a quick overview of our changes. We have made enemy power come less from endgame modifiers and more from the inherent strength of high-level enemies and the base effect of corruption, primarily to achieve a more predictable experience in high corruption monolith. Specific corruption values should feel like they mean something in terms of difficulty instead of difficulty varying so wildly based on your current mods. To achieve this, enemies have been buffed globally at high levels. Corruption scaling has been increased. Monolith mods have shorter duration and no longer scale with corruption, and high-level dungeon and arena mods have been reduced in power. Overall, we have increased enemy health and damage globally above level 60 by around 5% at level 80 and around 25% at level 100. Okay. Making it harder, basically, in endgame. Arena disabled bonus XP from Arena for characters below level 50. Certain Arena mods, especially those specific to T3 and T4, have been adjusted to lessen the impact of the global enemy buffs. However, these changes are smaller than the ones to dungeon mods, so T3 and T4 Arena will now be noticeably harder than before. Because we have buffed enemies globally, we expect that it will be more difficult at a baseline. We have also changed the scaling for enemies in Endless Arena past Wave 100 to be much faster. For example, Wave 140 is equivalent to the old Wave 200, and Wave 320 is equivalent to the old Wave 500. Consequently, achieving high tiers of Endless Arena is now much harder. Campaign. Many campaign scenes have been turned to look and perform better. New visual elements have been added to the end of time. Encounters in Chapter 4, 5, and 6 have been overhauled. Nearly all 4, 5, and 6 scenes contain semi-randomized or fully randomized enemy placement. Many enemies with old models have been removed. No more jewel spiders or old chimeras. Many enemies with new models have been added, such as zombie hounds, undead hydras, and bone mimics. That sounds cool, bone mimics. Other enemies have been shifted around and rebalanced. The raid dunes no longer have infinity sprawling race. Various bugs within Imperial era enemies have been fixed. All Scorpion enemies except for the Gem Scorpion boss and Voidstone Scorpion now use the new Scorpion model. Larger Imperial enemies such as Immortalized and Desecrated Fleshes are now always rare. Quest encounters in 4 and 5 that previously involved a rare enemy now always feature a unique mini-boss. Okay. Chapter 4 has also additional mini-bosses in various zones. Town waypoints now automatically unlock upon entering the zone. Time Rift portals now say what era it is taking you to in the transition notification. Dungeons. Enemies in T1 dungeons deal 35% less damage and they have 25% less health. Remove the entrances from all dungeons after the player has entered. You can no longer turn around and go back the way you entered. Lightless Arbor changes. The Mount Beneath grants 150 more experience. Stone Titan's Heart grants 400% more experience. Titan Spawn grants 46 more experience. Amber Elementals grants 108 more experience. Rotting Hollows grants 75% less experience. Soulfire Bastion, Fire Leech Cremoris grants 350 more experience. Immortal Incinerators grant 50% less experience. Possessed Golems grant 25% less experience. Temporal Sanctum. Chronomancer Jeweler grants 233 more experience. Temporal Hunters grant 38 more experience. Nightmares grant 27 more experience. T3 and T4 dungeon mods have been adjusted so that bosses at those tiers have a similar power to before. However, this means that earlier parts of the dungeon will be more difficult, especially the Soulfire Bastion. Okay, the Monolith of Faith, Blessing changes. Grand Echo of Solarum grants 55 to 75 Void Resist. Divinity grants 55, 75 Lightning Resist. Grand Persistence of Will grants 55. Poison Resist. Grand Dream of Terror grants 55 Necrotic Resist. Resolve of Gale grants 55 to 75 Physical Resist. Grand Protection of Herok grants 55 to 75 Cold Resist. Grand Heart of Caldera grants 55 Fire Resist. Virtue Command. Basically, it's just talking about all of these, how they're buffed. Corruption scaling. These changes are intended to allow for faster progression through the monolith for characters that are capable of it. Change the modifier from corruption to scale up more quickly. It is now larger and scales up faster, especially at high corruption. At corruption 100 is 60% more monster damage and health from 50 at 200. Corruption is now 170 from 100. At 300 corruption is 281. From 47 at 5 corruption is 505. Monolith mob density. Normalized mob density is now 4% lower than before in Reign of Dungeons, 8% lower than it was before in the level 90 timelines, and 10% higher in all other timelines. Regular monolith echoes contain 5% more enemies. This does not change the number of enemy types in the echoes. The increased item rarity and experience from modifiers have mostly retained their existing base values. Enemies are deadly if not damaged recently now grants 40% increased item rarity. Enemies in rage at half health now grant 40% increased item rarity and 40% increased experience from 5%. Mod scaling. Echo modifier values, other changes. Disabled bonus XP from Monolith for characters below level 50. 8 new Monolith Echoes have been added to the game. These include 2 Ruin themed Echoes, 3 Divine themed Echoes, 3 Imperial themed Echoes. Many Monolith scenes have been tuned to look and perform better. Completing a timeline that can unlock multiple other timelines now unlocks all of them, regardless of dialogue choices and quest echoes. Okay. We're getting full controller support. Matchmaking is getting improved. Parties always loading towns together. Matchmaking in more populated towns. Added solo character found challenge mode to online play. There's an offline solo challenge where characters cannot party and their stash is isolated from all the characters on the account. Bandit solo challenge will be a bug we're working on. We plan to address this with the hotfix. We're abandoning the challenge transitions the character to solo account found and deletes their current stash. Ooh, okay. They've added parry. Parry is a defense mechanic that grants a chance to negate all damage taken from hits. However, unlike dodge, parrying does still count as being hit as a result of the ailments that can still be applied to you when you parry a hit. Parry has no effect against damage over time effects and is capped at 75%. It is not currently possible to reach this cap with available sources. Stun avoidance rework. Change how stun avoidance affects chance to be stunned. It now adds the flat percentage reduction in chance to be stunned that applied after the rest of calculation rather than to health. Well, it's not. It's 1%. Okay, it's just talking about the stun rework. Skill, improving experience for skills with special requirements such as channel skills, skills with weapon requirements, or movement skills by adjusting elements like auto-targeting. Okay. Light skill changes. Bone Golem. Ooh, Bone Golem. Bone Hail grants 12% more bone shatter damage. Handle Mages grants 12 more spell damage. Increased stun chance. Cool vengeance now. Drain life. Dread Shade, Infernal Shade, Soul Feast, just talking about the Alkalite rework. Summon Skeleton, Skeletal Mage, Volatile Zombie, Wraith, other changes. Mage skill changes. Okay. Primal skill changes, kind of already went over that. Earlier, rogue skill changes. Sentinel skill changes. Item changes. Okay, they've added 13 new uniques. Wheel of Torment, Unvar's Rise, Unvar's Hegemony, Unvar's Exile, Communion of the Erased, Stygian Coal, Stygian's Reprisal, Spine of Maltros, Vial of Volatile Eyes, Blood Roost, Falcon Fist, Talons of Valor, Wraithlord's Harbor. Okay. Set item changes. Aaron's Will, Aberrant's Call, Arrow Guards, Archer's Legacy, Battle Mages, Bleeding Heart, Box of Hydra, Calamity, Cleaver Solution, Death Rattle, Elko's Abandon, Izangius, Herald of the Scurry, Hive Mind, Kermodi's Cage, Legacy of the Quiet Forest, Mad Alchemy Ladle, Nightbringer, Omen of Thunder, Paranoia, Pillager's Gold, Renegade's Will, Sacrificial Embrace, Sangjin Horde, Shadow Beacon, Shroud of Obscurity, Sunforge, Great Helm, Sunforge Curious, Sunwreath, the Falcon, Trokas T, Twisted Heart of Onhirkos, Vilitaris, Stormcrown, Zerilla's Hunt, base classes. Base items, all classes. Added many new faction-themed items that players can buy from faction games' favor. Added 4 new endgame caches containing rare and exalted versions of all the base types of each faction. Renamed the non-class specific Forest Guard base type to Forest Caress to avoid confusion with the Primalist specific Forest Grab Guard base set. Item level requirement from affixes is now capped at 90. Talking about how they reworked some belts, boots, gloves, rings, weapons, class items, Acolyte helmets, mage body armor, mage helmets, Primos body armor, Primos helmets, rogue body armor, rogue helmets, sentinel body armor, weapon affixes, enemy changes, new replace enemies. Chapter 3. Replace all void cultists except for a few mini boss. Replace void bears, consume growls. Yeah, it's just talking about the enemies that have either been removed or rebalanced or added. Added zombie hounds, mortal hunters, bone sculptors, war tombs. Chapter 5 got a lot. Change the way ranged enemies behave. This also makes these enemies less oppressive and robotic when fighting them. All enemies have 2% more health. All enemies deal 1% more damage. Increased enemy health and damage globally above 60 around 5%, at least at level 80, and around 25% at level 100. Change some sounds in the UI. Fix some bugs. Change some animations. Okay, talking about cosmetics. 5 new helms. UI updates. Menus, map and quest log, monolith panels. Social panel. Sprite updates, tooltips, tutorials. Sound, voice acting, other bug fixes. It's talking about general bug fixes, bugs they fixed in the game. Minions will not travel with you in arenas correctly. System bug fixes, controller bug fixes, dungeon bug fixes, monolith of fate bug fixes. They've done a lot. This patch is rolling out a lot, fixing a lot of things wrong with the game, which is good. This is all the bug fixes they fixed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's everything so far on Last Epoch 1.0. It drops February 21st, 2024. I'm very excited to check out all the fixes they've made and ready for this game to go full access. Thank you all for watching. Please leave a like and a comment and let me know how I'm doing down below. Thanks.